So there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. Your genetics loads the gun, right? But your lifestyle is what fires it. You change your brain, you change your life. You change your brain, you change your world.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Schulz, and I'm here with someone I'm very excited to talk to. I saw your, I don't even know what you call them. Do you call them a performance? It's more than a talk. You're interacting with the crowd.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I wouldn't call it a talk. Like a TED Talk is kind of boring, right? Like I did a TED Talk once. There's no interaction, but you're back and forth. You're like making us stand up, sit down. You're actually making us do these exercises that are like potentially improving our lives. And I was just blown away. I was blown away. We're here with Jim Kwik, and he's going to make all of our brains work so much better. And I'm very excited for this convo. I have to give you a huge compliment. One specific thing from the talk, and we'll get to a bunch of them, but one specific thing you did in the talk, we've heard so often people talk about like the secret, right? And like the power of belief.
Yeah.
And you executed the power of belief with physical results.
Yeah.
And that was so satisfying because you read all these books and it's just like, yeah, think about it and then it will happen.
Right.
But it doesn't, right? Like you could think about wanting water so much, but like if you're in the desert, there's no water, it's not going to just appear.
Yeah.
But you did this cool exercise where you basically said, hey, try to reach your arm as far back as you can.
Yeah.
And then you made us visualize twisting around in a 360 and then like a 720 doing the same thing without actually doing it. And then the next time we went to go reach back with our arm, it went back another like fucking 90 degrees. I couldn't believe it.
Isn't that wild?
Unbelievable. So right there, I was like, okay, this guy is a brain expert. Proven. It was official in that moment. And I was like, I don't know, I was just so blown away. And yeah, it was just so cool. It was great to go there. We were at the Faina Rose.
Yes.
Shout out to Pablo. Faina Rose is a place in Miami that has these amazing events and great speakers. And we were lucky enough to go watch you. So Jim Kwik, we start here. Why did you need to figure out how our brains work? Why did you need to hack it? And why did you need to optimize it?
That's a great question. I would say my inspiration was my desperation.
Okay.
I struggled, despite what people see on video and these performances where I do these mental feats I grew up in learning challenges. When I was 5 years old, I was in kindergarten class and I had an accident where I took a very bad fall, rushed to the emergency room, head trauma, traumatic brain injury. And from there, my parents said I was never the same from there. Before I was very curious, very energized, very playful. And then after that, I just became very shut down. I had horrible focus, concentration. Teachers would repeat themselves over and over again. Nothing registered. I had a horrible memory. I don't know if anyone could relate to these things, but it took me 3 years longer just to learn how to read. I taught myself how to read by reading comic books, but it was a hard. My mess has really become my message. I remember when I was 9 years old, I was slowing down the whole class, and a teacher pointed to me because I was being teased by other kids. And said, "That's the boy with the broken brain," and that was heartbreaking, And so that was my label, and that label became my limit. But I've noticed, like through adversity, sometimes it can be an advantage,
right?
Through struggles that everyone has gone through, it could lead to strengths. When you're challenged, it could lead to some kind of positive change. And
right,
yeah.
So when did you realize, like, okay? All right. Was there any point in time where you're like, am I just dumb and it wasn't the fall?
Yeah, that was part of it because I didn't know. I mean, I would always say every single time I did badly on a test or a quiz, wasn't picked for sports, which was like all the time.
Yeah.
I'd always say, oh, because I have the broken brain. That became my identity.
Yeah.
And there was a pressure. My parents immigrated to the United States and didn't speak the language.
Where from?
In the back of China.
China.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they live in the back of a laundromat that my mom worked at, so it was also that. So I wanted to make them proud. I'm the oldest of, 3 siblings. I want to be a good role model for the youngins. And but I couldn't hack it. I would work hard, but it didn't show up.
Was there another expectation, like being Asian and usually you're supposed to have all this success in school? And was it like weird for your classmates? They're like, what's going on with them?
It was. I was one of 2 Asians in my school. The other one was Roger Lee. He was 1 year ahead of me, and he was he missed one question on the SATs, was so upset, and he had to take it over to get a perfect score. He was president of the debate team, the math team, class valedictorian. And so I think he set a bar, where people like, that's, what to expect. And I came around and I was the one that allowed, I was on the other side of the bell curve that made that possible. Yeah. So that was added a little pressure onto it as well. I didn't kind of fit that mold.
Were your parents pissed?
I'm anything that's good that's come out of me, I attribute to them. Anything that's fallen short, that's all on me.
Right.
They're not the wealthiest or the most intellectual or the healthiest or spiritual or any of that, but they're just really good people.
Okay.
They work hard, they're very kind, they do no harm, and good role models. But obviously they wanted to encourage me to do better.
You said something interesting in the talk. You said, and I want to quote you here. We get paid for brain strength, not brute strength.
Yeah, it's like, back when, I don't know, agricultural age, the beginning of the industrial age, it was more like muscle power.
Pick shit up.
Yeah. Be able to move things and hard labor. And I think nowadays it's shifted from muscle power to mind power.
100%.
Like everyone who's listening to this, as you're hustling and you're getting your education, your personal growth, I think knowledge is not only power today, knowledge is profit.
Yeah.
Right? The faster you can learn, the faster you could earn, and not just money, but just all the treasures of your life.
So that was something I wanted to ask you yesterday during the conference, and you gave us the opportunity to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
Or the talk or the performance. And I have this problem where I know how valuable information is, and there's so much fucking information out there that I have like information paralysis. I don't know if I'm just making up that term, but like there's so many things that I have to read in order to get the truth out of this story. Okay, I got to read the right wing side, I got to read the left wing side, then there's a libertarian side, and then there's this, and I just go, I don't care enough. And then I kind of just don't consume any of it. I just refuse to digest in a weird way. How do I get past that?
Yeah, I mean, I think thinking is good. Overthinking, could stop progress and wanting to be perfect, before it even starts. I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people who are with us today, they suffer from information overload. Like this is like a real like medical condition, like information anxiety. Too much. It feels like we're drowning in information, but we're starving for those practical ways to kind of keep up with it all. It's like you're taking a sip of water out of a fire hose trying to keep up with all the news and everything.
Right.
I did a program at Google years ago, and I heard this quote from the chairman. It was the amount of information that's been created from the dawn of humanity since humans walked the earth to the year 2003. That amount of information. Think about that. Yeah. Like the Library of Congress, all that information. That now is created every 2 days online. You think about like your YouTube and your podcasts and social media. And we're producing so much information. How can you possibly keep up with it all?
Yeah, they were so proud they made like the Constitution. It's like, we do 3 pods a week, guys.
Exactly.
Step it up, founding fathers.
Exactly. So there's so much information, but how we learn it and retain it, it's all the same. So that growing gap creates, stress.
Right.
And people are suffering higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness, as we talked about in the presentation. So, and nowadays you feel like you need to know it all. And the amount of information gets dated after, getting shorter and shorter. People graduate, that information is not as relevant.
So what's the most efficient way to digest information? Yeah.
And so my thing is always upgrading our skills. School taught us what to learn, what to read, what to remember, what to focus on, a lot to what to think.
Yeah.
But not how to do those things. I think a missing ingredient in our education system is this thing called meta-learning.
Okay.
Meta-learning means learning how to learn.
Yes.
So it's one of those things school taught us, subjects like math and history and science and Spanish, but it's been really useful to learn classes on focus, on study techniques, on reading faster. I always thought it should have been the 4th R in school: reading, writing, arithmetic. Obviously spelling wasn't one of them, but what about remembering, retention, recall? Yeah. Socrates said learning is remembering. So, I feel like the trick is to learn how to learn. And I think it's the biggest superpower you could have nowadays.
Okay. How do we learn
How do we learn
more efficiently?
more efficiently?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could turn this into a masterclass. I mean, if people are listening to this, if they could grab some notes too, I'll hopefully drop some practical wisdom for everybody. You know, whether you're in school, you're starting a business, whatever you are, age or stage of your life, I would say 4 keys to learning faster. Remember, I'll use acronyms just to make it, you use acronyms in school?
Of course.
Like HOMES to remember the Great Lakes, like H is Huron, O is Ontario. These are like little tricks.
I never knew a single lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys knew the Great Lakes?
Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior.
That's amazing.
Ah.
Yeah, there you go. So like
Holmes was like what Mexicans would call each other.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So these little things like so I remember FAST, F-A-S-T. These are 4 tips to learning faster.
Yeah.
So think about a subject or a skill you want to, whether it's money, marketing, martial arts, Mandarin, whatever, right? The F in FAST stands for forget, which is interesting for a memory expert to talk about. But I feel like a lot of people don't learn faster because they feel like they know it already, and our ego could get in the way. Sometimes. So I think sometimes we have to empty our cup to put new information in.
Okay.
So have a beginner's mind. I would also say forget about distractions. So many people. I mean, we live in a culture of rings, pings, dings, app notifications, social media alert, likes, shares, comments, and we are driven to distraction. And sometimes it helps to learn when you could just focus. And if something comes in your mind, I know it's difficult, but focus is a muscle. And it's use it or lose it.
Question about that.
Yeah.
I open my phone. I imagine everybody in this room does this. I open my phone to do a single thing.
Yeah.
Dove will say, hey, can you do us a favor and text the restaurant and let them know that we'll be late? I open my phone because I want to do that. And then I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on and then I forgot why I opened my fucking phone in the first place. Is this just not a useful tool for executing tasks?
I love technology. Technology for me is, it has a light and a dark side, right? Like fire is technology. Fire could cook your food or fire could burn down your home. It's just how it's applied. I love technology because it makes our lives convenient. Like it's so convenient. It allows this to happen, right? It allows us to reach and impact and encourage and challenge people. And I would say that you want technology as a tool for you to use. But if the technology is using you, then who becomes the tool?
Yes.
In the equation. And
so we're being used, essentially.
At some time, I would say that use it purposefully. But when, I have on our podcast, we had Dr. BJ Fogg, and he runs a lab at Stanford University on habits. And he's like the #1 habit expert. Yeah. And I believe first you create your habits, then your habits create you. But one of his students actually co-founded Instagram. And think about how habitual that app is, right? How addictive it is. Yeah. And, we open it, 100 times a day? Yeah. And if somebody's not opening it 100 times, if they're doing it 10 times, that means somebody's opening it a lot more to get that average. And I'm just saying that if we're doing it mindlessly, then it's kind of driving us to distraction, but we're using purpose.
I'm sure somebody has done this analogy before, but in like movies back in the day when the people who had sex the night before would wake up, the first thing they would do, right, is they'd roll over and they'd grab a cigarette, they light the cigarette and smoke it, right? What is the first thing that we all do the second we wake up in the morning? Before I kiss my fiance, I grab my phone and just, did we get some likes and some validation? I have the validation I need next to me, asleep for the rest of my life, but I'm looking on the phone. Did some strangers think I was funny yesterday? It is so addictive. It's terrifying. Yeah. But it is so, at least for me, they've convinced me it's so useful, and it has provided so much, right? It's provided a career for me, my friends, salvation in a lot of ways in terms of like economic mobility. So it's like, it's hard for me to hate it, and it's really hard for me to tell people not to be on it. Yeah. Like, who the fuck am I to say don't be on your phone when like being on your phone helped me build this?
Yep. I think it's a balance. I mean, so people, and I'm not one to say for anybody just, to judge. People should do whatever works for them. And I'm just saying sometimes when we say yes to somebody or something, make sure we're not saying no to the important things for ourselves. You know what I mean? Gotcha. Where if you're touching your phone the first thing in the morning, you're rewiring your brain for like distraction. You're rewiring your brain for reaction, to fight fires and respond to everybody else, as opposed to designing your day, around the things that are most important for you. So I'm not, and again, I'm online, and we do a lot of things online. And I would just say having some kind of balance. And so everyone can make a choice. In my book, Limitless, I have a quote from a French philosopher, and he says, life is the C between B and D. And you think about, like, we're speaking in tongues. B stands for birth, D is death, and C, life, choice. You know, I believe that everything comes down to choices, that our life is a reflection of all the choices we made up to this point.
Yeah.
Who are we going to spend time with? What are we going to eat? What are we going to do? And that sum total is where we are today. And we could always at any time make a new choice. And so I'm saying, yeah, if you love your phone, you know, be on your phone. Like, and ask yourself, is this getting the result that I want? You know, so if it's distraction and you're just doing it, people are just doing it out of habit, that's where I'd be concerned.
Do you break up, and I want to get back to what you were talking about with fast but
memory.
Do you break up your technological devices for the different things that you use them for? Like, do you have a tablet just to read so you don't have messages popping in? Or are you able to just do everything there and you just work that ability to not get distracted?
I mean, my focus is pretty strong because I train it and it's a practice. So there's ways we could talk about training your focus.
Yeah.
Most people are training their distraction muscles, so they're flexing it all the time, and they wonder why they read a page in a book and forgot what they just read. They get somebody's name and it disappears out of their mind. They were going to say something and they're like lost that thought because they're just driven to distraction because their mind is always multitasking and try to do multiple things. And I would say that if you could control your environment, yeah, it would be great if people could afford it to have a device just for entertainment and another device just for work, you know, just to help them to focus and eliminate distractions. But it's hard. You know, it's that simple, but it's that difficult at the same time.
How are we training ourselves for distraction?
So one of the things is, especially when you wake up, right? When you wake up, you're in this relaxed state and you're very, very suggestible, right? And so if you pick up your phone, you're rewiring your brain for distraction because, like we talked about, every like, share, comment, cat video, whatever, you get this dopamine flood, right? And dopamine gives you happiness, and it goes along the learning and motivation centers of your nervous system, and that's what makes it addictive, right? You just want more and more and more. And keep in mind, like, these platforms have invested countless dollars, billions of dollars. They have the best, like, psychologists to be able to engineer us spending more time. And again, it's just giving people free will and choice. So I would say that having this device there, you know, as much as you can be able to control it and exercise your will. And as long as it's not taking you from away, like distraction, the opposite is traction, right? And so if you're making traction in your life, in your career, in your business, in school, distraction is things that take you away from that path. And so I would just ask yourself, is this giving me what I want in the moment? And it's not easy at all, right?
Yeah.
It's very addictive. We have videos online where we talk about just even having a phone at a dinner table stresses people out. Their anxiety goes up, even if it's face down. You just feel the drive to pick it up.
Yeah. It's it is so true. There's two phones on the table. A buddy of mine, like Giannis Papas, has a funny joke about this, but that I'm not going to butcher right now because I don't remember it, unfortunately. But yeah, having the phone on the table is like you're in this conversation, and if that conversation lags at all, your eyes just start like drifting to that thing that can make you feel good in the moment. So they're hiring people like you essentially to do bad things. So you're a force of good. You're like, hey, be careful, guys. This is how you should live your life, and this is how we can optimize our brain and not be tricked by these scientists that are basically going, how do we trick people?
I would say that I don't know. I want to talk about conspiracies, but I'm just saying that we have to be 100% responsible for our life. We're not a victim or at the effect. Okay. And as much as you know, control we could have in directing the course as opposed to, you know, being at the effect, then I would opt for that.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
If you can get me addicted to my phone, can that same technology get me addicted to working out? Can it get, no?
Yeah.
Oh, it can.
Of course, yeah. The same principles.
Well, let's fucking go. I mean, is that what Peloton is? Is that what like...
Soul Cycle and all the things that people get like big rushes from? Yeah. I would love, you know, for me, it's always habits is all about making what's good for you easy and making what's bad for you more difficult. Like if picking up the phone is really driving you to, you know, in putting a wedge between you and your relationship or your health or your work, then, you know, ideally don't have the phone in the bedroom if you can help it, because then that just makes it easier. It's just like, let's say somebody doesn't feel good when they eat bread, but they love bread, and the waitstaff brings bread to the table. It's easier to say no up front than having it sit there and just like, no, 50 times during dinner, right? And so set up the environment for you to win. Yeah, I think that would be pretty wise.
You were talking a little bit yesterday about the morning routine.
Yeah.
And now I've heard a lot of people talk about morning routine. Every one of these like books about like billionaires, they're like, oh, every billionaire has like the same morning routine, blah, blah. And this is something that I really appreciate about what you do, is that it becomes practical when you do it.
Yeah.
You know, like they go, every billionaire has the same morning routine. Like they wake up, you know, they brush their teeth. It's like, yeah, poor people have that too. Like,
yeah.
I don't think that's the thing making them a billionaire.
Yeah.
But what you were talking about was brain state.
Yeah. So
can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, I believe the treasure we seek is hidden in our routines, and and where we pick up these routines, probably when we're kids or somewhere along the way that we didn't sit down and design what would be best. I'm probably part to blame for that. There's a video out there. If you search billionaire morning routine, somebody took one of my interviews and kind of clickbaited it so it looks very catchy and has 7 million views. I wouldn't say, having spent some time with some very wealthy individuals, they don't do all these things.
No,
not at all. But my thing is, if you want to win the day, you got to win that first hour of the day, because you want to get some momentum, right? And so my day, some of the things to think about. First, my day starts the night before, because you really need to get a good night's sleep. And I don't know who I'm talking to, but if you're hustling at the expense of your sleep, the challenge is you can't cram. If you're going to run a marathon, you can't just wait the night before and just, exercise 7 hours that night, right? Or if somebody is going to go, play basketball, for a big game, you can't just cram the night before things. Certain things take a natural process. And I would say, going to bed, maximize. How's your sleep? Yeah,
it's okay. I mean, we have these dogs kind of wake us up a little bit, but I'm getting to sleep earlier. I would say 7 hours a night, maybe 6-7 hours a night. Is that enough?
Do you feel rested when you wake up?
Not really.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and people are watching this, they're young, they could plow through it, but it's just important to have these habits early on when you can.
Yeah.
And nobody gets this perfect, right? The goal is not perfection. It's just making some kind of progress.
What is the right amount of sleep?
So,
and how do I stop peeing in the middle of the night?
Does
that count against my REMs?
It could, it certainly could affect your sleep. I would say it's not the quantity of your sleep; it really is the quality. You know these like sleep devices like Oura Ring and stuff like that that measure sleep. So it's the deep sleep and it's the REM sleep. The deep sleep is when you repair your body. The REM sleep is where you restore your mind. And so it's not just the quality. Some people get 8 hours and they still feel like exhausted. And so it's the quality of the sleep. So we can't manage anything you can't measure. So I would recommend people kind of do a sleep study, stuff like that. My sleep, I don't talk about this a lot, but for 5 years, I slept 90 minutes a night. Yeah, it was rough. And this was in the height of my career, and maybe 2 hours total. And I would wake, and I found out I was misdiagnosed. I had a sleep test, and I have severe sleep apnea. And I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's a breathing disorder.
Yeah.
And
usually for fat people, right?
Yeah, because what happens is as you gain weight, especially in the neck area, it restricts your airflow, and so you wake up not being able to breathe. And for me, it wasn't a weight issue; it's just a genetic thing. I found out later my parents have sleep apnea, both of them. My brother and my sister also do, and I would stop breathing 220 times a night, and each time was at least a count of 10 seconds. So the doctor at UCLA was like, no wonder you're in such bad shape. It's like somebody coming in 200 times a night and putting a pillow on your
face.
Yeah, and you're waking up suffocating. I couldn't breathe. And I would use a CPAP breathing device, a dental device, which is real sexy.
Night, babe.
Yeah.
Darth Vader for the rest of the evening.
Exactly. And so I would do all these things and still wouldn't move it. And eventually I was having breakfast with Larry King, and he's like a big role model, like where we live in LA, and one of my mentors, and he literally walked me into his ENT to get analyzed, and I actually got diagnosed properly, and we went to the head of UCLA, surgery, and they did this surgery on me where they took out my tonsils, my uvula, my soft palate, extremely painful, to create more place, a place where I could breathe.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot. So I went from there to about 4 or 5 hours, and that was life-changing for me. And
I don't know how you slept for 90 minutes. For
you know what it was?
Years.
And that's why I wrote this book, part of it. And there's a whole area of sleep that I really became read every book, talked to every expert on the subject.
Yeah.
But when you don't sleep, and I don't know who I'm talking to right now who's struggling with this.
Yeah.
It impairs everything. Like your temperament, your feelings, your relationship. How you could think and focus, how you can remember things. So a few sleep tips. What I do the night before, my evening routine, is I want to make sure your brain loves continuity and consistency. So going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, even on the weekends, is a big score. I know it's not easy.
Yeah.
All right. So nothing about success and performance is easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm just saying it's worth it. Right. And so going to bed at the same time, having it dark, because, with modern day conveniences, with lighting and screens, we fool our brain. There's the blue light in your screens for your devices that fool your brain to thinking it's still daylight. And so it doesn't produce the melatonin to help you relax and go to sleep. The other trigger besides light is temperature. Back when you're hunter-gatherer, you knew to go to sleep because the lighting dipped, and so did the temperature. But in controlled environments, it doesn't get cold in your home. And so making your room a little colder will help you sleep, get that restorative sleep. You kind of hibernate,
Yeah.
And so, and before I go to bed, one of the best things you could do is go through just your day. People can't remember things.
Following day or what you did?
Like what you did that day.
Okay.
So there's something called episodic memory. And episodic memory is very useful because you notice even with the pandemic, it's really exacerbated this, where days blended together.
I can keep going.
No.
This is
you don't
so
know.
relatable.
Yeah.
There was a time where you couldn't even ask me what day it was.
Yep.
We'd just been working straight through. I don't know if it was a Tuesday, it was Thursday, especially you're not going out. There's nothing on TV.
Exactly.
There's nothing like positioning your week. That's so true.
Because
Okay.
you're not going to the movies, you're not going out to restaurants or clubs or
You
whatever.
could peg the week to these different events and they weren't happening.
Because you don't have those distinctive things that stand out in your memory, so they all blend for days, right?
Yeah.
And so that's your episodic memory. And so what you could do is just spend, as you go to bed, take 3 minutes. And so there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. And some people think, actually, there's a trained memory and an untrained memory.
And what are those?
So there's no such thing as a good or bad memory when people say I have a bad memory. It's just you haven't trained your memory because we weren't taught how to do that. And one of the things you could do is simple exercise that anyone could do is at the end of the night when you're lying in bed, just take 3 minutes, close your eyes, and just review your day. Right? What did you put on? What were you wearing? What did you eat for breakfast? What calls did you make? Right? And that helps to train your brain so you start remembering. A lot of people don't remember what happened, that day or who they talked to.
Yeah.
And the reason why memory is so important is because, I lost when I was going through these learning challenges. My grandmother was my primary caregiver, right? Because my parents always had all these jobs and stuff, and so. When I was going through my challenges, she, at 5 and 6, started showing the signs of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And if anyone, my heart goes out to you if anyone has.
My pops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you know what I'm talking about. Like she would call me by my dad's name. She would say something she just said 45 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And when people lose their memory, it feels like they lose who they are. So while we teach people to remember facts, figures, formulas, whatever, it's really about remembering your life, remembering your loved ones, remembering your lessons, right? Those special moments. But that really affected me early on, and that's why I dedicated all the proceeds of the book to Alzheimer's research, children's education, because we're so passionate about that. But that just broke my heart, and it just made me think about what's good for the brain. And if you're not sleeping, that could really add. They say your genetics, because I'm concerned because that's genetic. Your genetics loads the gun, right? But your lifestyle is what fires it. And so that's why it's so important to treat yourself well, and especially your brain, because your brain controls everything, right? You want to change your brain, you change your life. You change your brain, you change your world.
So the night before, you reflecting on the day.
I go through the day for a few minutes.
And it's just, hey, what are some events that happened today? I just want to log these.
After a week of doing it, you start getting more and more clarity. You start remembering the things, like that are special. And then what I do is I pull one or two little things out of that day that I'm just grateful for.
Right.
So you have this sympathetic and parasympathetic state. And the parasympathetic state is the state rest and digest, right? And that's the state, you know what, one of the best ways to get in that state is gratitude.
Dude, this gratitude thing.
Yeah. What is it about?
Tell me.
I really think gratitude rewires your brain because first of all,
it's one of these hacks. I want you to explain it to us, but it's one of these hacks that like you have to experience it in order to understand why it works. Yeah. It's like Burning Man. Like, I don't know if you've ever been a Burning Man or like even Game of Thrones. Like you ever try to describe the show Game of Thrones to somebody? You just sound like a nerd. You're like, oh, there's dragons. And then you're like, no, just watch it. It's really good.
Yeah.
The gratitude thing is the same way. Just be grateful for what you have. It's so easy in practice. But the moments where I feel like truly grateful, right? You're like tingling.
Yeah.
Is it that easy? Is that easy to just sit down there? Man, I had a great meal today. That everything bagel was unbelievable. And then literally you're rewiring your brain in that moment?
Yeah, so you can rewire your nervous system because gratitude tells you that there's enough, and especially in a world full of stress, a world full of fear, chronic stress shrinks our brain. When your adrenaline and cortisol put you in fight or flight or freeze, but you're not gonna study your best. You're not gonna do your best in your job. You're not gonna be there for your loved one as much when you're just fight or flight, or frozen. And so the antidote to fear, I think, is gratitude. Chronic fear actually suppresses your immune system, which is very topical right now. It's an area of science called psychoneuroimmunology, but it makes you more susceptible to colds, the flus, the viruses. So controlling that, and I think, when you feel grateful, and most people are like, I'm going to wait till I have something to be grateful for. It's like, you don't have to wait for a greater life to feel grateful. If you feel grateful, you'll have a greater life, for sure. For sure. And here's a simple thing, exercise, practical, people could do. Make a list, take out a piece of paper and write down, like I imagine a lot of people want to feel wealthier, right? Write down everything that you have in your life that money can't buy, that you wouldn't trade for money. Relationships, your sense of sight, your hearing, whatever, your any semblance of your health, just all that. Or here's one, what if the only things you had in your life tomorrow were the things you expressed gratitude for today? Simple exercise. And the reason why you do that is because, tomorrow is not promised. That's why it's so important for your loved ones and everyone just to show and tell them, because we don't know, right? What tomorrow brings.
It's an interesting flip though, because a lot of people, what is stressing them out the most is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy thing to get their mind to go from, fuck, tomorrow's going to be so horrible, to, hey, you might not even have tomorrow. Because I'm sure some of them on some level are going, well, that'd be nice if I didn't have to deal with tomorrow. Not saying that they should do anything about that, but it is a very different perspective for most people.
Yeah, a lot of this practice, the bad news is it takes work.
Yeah.
The good news, I don't think it takes as much as people think.
Yeah.
It's a lot. When you do the easy things in life all the time, which is just putting things off or procrastinating or just like binge, whatever, distraction, then life gets hard though. When you just do easy things in life gets very hard. But if you do the hard things in life somehow gets a little bit easier. When you have that difficult conversation, or the things that you don't like, working out, the things that are difficult, life gets a lot easier also as well.
I want you to keep going on what happens the next morning, but at some point I do want to touch on like what stress does to not only memory, but like performance, like times where I'm feeling like my most confident, I feel like I can perform the best. And I feel like these ideas are coming into my brain. Like it's amazing. These synapses are just firing. And the times where I'm like scared or nervous, self-conscious, it's like my brain is a empty void. Like I'm just sitting there going, is something going to happen? Is a joke going to come to my mind? Am I going to have anything interesting to say at all? Yeah. Why could fear induce a reaction that would like limit my ability to succeed in that moment?
Yeah, I think emotions, for me, my point of view with emotions is they're like signposts. When you feel sad or you feel guilty or you feel afraid, I think each of those emotions are to signal something. Emotions, it's like the energy of motion. It's like, if you feel fear of, giving a toast at a wedding, I think that fear is useful because it gets you to prepare. Right? There's some kind of emotion
it's a
there.
driving force.
I don't know how you feel before you go on stage. Is it just, you've done it so much that you could just kind of roll out of bed at 4 a.m. and just...
Yeah. I mean, there's some times where you're really excited. Like, I know if there's a new joke or new idea I want to talk about, I'm really excited. Yeah. I can't wait to get to the point where I'm going to talk about it. And sometimes I'll try to do it in the middle of my set. And then everything before that, I'm just unenthusiastic about, and it doesn't go. So I just got to start with the new thing that I'm passionate. I can kind of ride that passion. But yeah, I could see situations where I maybe feel nervous and I've got to almost fake it till I make it.
Yeah.
Like you set up these, I'm sure with your, performances as well. It's you set up these structures where you can succeed even if you're so nervous.
Yeah.
And I try to do that. I'm sure comics try to do that with a set. And sometimes there's comfort within the structure, I guess.
There is.
A safety.
Exactly. And also that structure that you set up for yourself gives you flexibility too. So
I can always go back to the structure if I need it. Yeah.
So you have a little safety net there, but allows you to go a little, take some risks, and that's amazing. I think that excitement you feel, and it's very close to fear, right? That the feeling of fear and excitement, your heart's beating, maybe your respiratory.
They're same coin, different sides, right?
But attaching a label to it, I think that the words we use are the language of our mind, and the feelings that we feel is the language of our body.
Yeah.
But when we put a label to it, then all of a sudden, if somebody gets fearful of public speaking, which is a lot of people, calling it and kind of reframing it this is excitement just changes what it feels like. And I'm sure a lot of people in the entertainment world that are really phobic of that kind of work, sometimes. But some people transform it, and they do.
It's with athletes, right? You ever see athletes before they get in the ring or before they go, play a game of basketball or something like that, they're going, let's go, jumping up and down, slapping each other. Fighters oftentimes before they get in the ring, they're hitting themselves in the face, and maybe that's it. They're trying to take those anxious nerves and turn them into excitement. It's the energy is running through your system regardless.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that energy? Okay. So now you're getting ready to bed. You've reflected on the day. You've been grateful.
Yeah.
Next.
And then the last thing I do is I set some kind of, and now again, you don't have to do all these things. You're just some suggestions that don't take a lot of time.
Right.
But I would ask people to not judge it, but just test it, because ultimately you are your best expert, right?
Yeah.
So don't look at somebody else, but just test it for you, and maybe it works for you. Some people are really good on kale. Some people hate kale, so don't do it, right?
Kale, the salad?
Yeah, that for
that.
Not everything's for everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody's for everything.
Leafy greens.
Yeah, good memory. Good memory. Very good memory.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Dude, we did it today, and there was it was last night.
Yeah.
We went out for a couple of drinks last night, so maybe we were a little bit intoxicated, and the four of us were just going, "What is it? Blueberry?"
Really?
Oh yeah, it was
That's
locked.
amazing.
It was so impressive. We'll get to what that is later. It's a little confusing, but okay, we're getting to
so
bed.
The last thing I do is I just want to remind people that the power of their mind. I have a question. Have you ever had to wake up early, particularly early, and you set the alarm and you kind of obsess about it a little bit, but have you ever woken up within minutes of your alarm going off, or seconds?
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
How does that happen, right?
And it's obviously it's always before, right? But sometimes what happens is I'll wake up and then I set the alarm for PM instead of AM.
Oh, wow.
But I'm up.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I baked in a time.
Yeah.
Till my biological clock to get me. Yeah, it's weird.
Isn't that remarkable how powerful that intention or the power of your mind to be able to wake up within moments of your alarm going off? And that's a good thing because you set it for PM especially.
Yeah.
But what if we use that power of our intention or our mind before we go to bed to maybe set another intention besides waking up? Maybe thinking about a problem or thinking about a new set or a joke, something that you see when you learn or study all day or you work on your business, your brain doesn't shut off at night. It's actually more active. And what is it doing? It's consolidating your short to long-term memory. It's integrating all the things that you've learned, and it's coming up with ideas like these gems. When you dream, we'll probably spend 20 years of our life sleeping, maybe 3 to 5 full years dreaming. 3 to 5 years. That's a lot of time, right?
So insane to think about.
Yeah,
20
exactly.
years knocked out.
That's so it is, right? And so 3 to 5 years dreaming, and you're dreaming I mentioned this like last night that Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein in her dream.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney came up with the song Yesterday in his dream.
Yeah.
You know, Elias Howe created the sewing machine in his dream. A chemist created the periodic table dream. What are we dreaming about? And so
sometimes I dream and I bomb on stage.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm not finding my masterpiece at all.
You're not finding that?
I'm just going, I got to not do that joke.
But imagine like using that same intention of waking up at a certain time and you do it to kind of maybe like, I don't know, program is a weird word, but just asking yourself a question that you really want to know the solution for and let your brain work on it throughout the night.
Love it.
And maybe you happen to dream about those things. So that's what I do. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do actually is remember my dreams. I feel like that if my dreams are there, I just have right by my nightstand. I'm curious what you have by your nightstand. It's like I have a glass of water, a book, a fiction reading book that I read sometimes before I go to bed because I don't want to read anything like real heady and get my executive brain. But fiction is a nice way of decompressing. And I have like a little journal, like nothing fancy, a little notebook. But I just write my dreams in there each morning.
Okay.
And it trains myself to pay attention to my dreams. Have you heard of this idea of lucid dreaming?
Yeah, I've actually done it.
Really?
In like pretty intense ways.
Naturally? Since you were a kid? Or?
Yeah, just naturally, like fly when I want to. And I've been able, and it's quite often what happened to me in a dream is I'll go, oh, I'm dreaming. Oh, cool. And sometimes I can go, I know I'm dreaming, so it's time to fly. And I just fly. And there's some times where I go, I know I'm dreaming, fly. And I can't.
You can't.
Why?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if people listening to this, they might be seeming like really weird because they've never experienced this. They call it lucid dreaming.
This is not common? People don't?
No, it is common for some people, but not often for a lot of people.
Really?
They never experienced. So lucid means you're aware. And so lucid dreaming is you're aware that you're asleep and dreaming. And some people do it naturally, right? And for those who don't do it naturally, like anything else, you could train yourself to be able to do it. And it's wonderful because if you're spending 3 to 5 years of your life dreaming, then you could pick up that time and, you know, what can you do? You can live out fantasies, you can meet people, you can learn things, you can go on adventures, do all these things and still get the restorative benefit of sleep, right? So it's a wonderful. And one of the tricks that we talk about to lucid dream, I did a podcast episode on this, is just train yourself throughout the day. Ask yourself this simple question: is this a dream? So simple, right? Is this a dream? You ask yourself 100 times a day, and then the first time the answer is yes, then you're lucid dreaming, right? Because remember, you obsess about something, you know, throughout the day, and you start dreaming about it. What if you start asking yourself that question, or you start looking at your hand, and just like every time you look at your hand, just think about your dreams, and then when you look at your hand, you know, when you're in a dream, it just reminds you of that. But so I write down my dreams and I get these little gems. And then the second thing I do when I get up is I actually don't get out of bed. I don't touch my phone. All right. Because I think successful people, we all have a to-do list. Yeah. Everybody who's listening, you have your to-do list. But I think the people that are like really crushing it, they also have like a not to-do list. You know, whether it's explicit or it's just something that they just won't. These non-negotiables that there's this book, Good to Great, by Jim Collins, says you have to say no to good so you can say yes to
What's
great.
on your not to do list?
Yeah. And so on top of that list should be not touching your phone, right? The first half an hour to the last half an hour of a day. You know, that should be something there. Certain things that you just won't indulge in, or and you know what you could do is just when it comes to your brain, I spoke on the brain, I always wear brain shirts because I think it's so important to take care of your brain, is ask yourself, is this good for my brain or is this bad for my brain? You know, before every activity or food that you eat or thoughts that you have, people that you spend time with, because, you know, it's kind of, Warren Buffett has this thing where he says, a thought experiment says, when you're 16, imagine you're gifted a car, but this car is the car you're going to have for the rest of your life. You know, how well would you take care of that car? You know, you would, right?
That's
but this is, think about it. The vehicle we have is our body, you know, our mind, and we got to take care of it. So the first thing I do is I come up with this thought experiment that I came up with years ago. And I said, okay, instead of just waking up and hoping I have a great day, what has to happen in order for me to feel that way? My friend Clay Bear, he has this champagne moment idea. He says that when they crack open champagne at a sporting event, it's very clear who won, right? And what has to happen on the scoreboard for you to just be celebrating. But we don't have that for our life, and we don't even have that for our day. So imagine you're coming back at home and, you know, your fiance asks, how was your day? And you're like, today was amazing.
Yeah.
And then just ask yourself, what had to happen in order for me to feel that way?
That's
you know?
gonna piss her off if every day's
Yeah.
I can't wait for this.
But
This
the
is
three
awesome.
things, like, you know, like maybe 3 things at work, 3 things for personal. It didn't have to be big things, but just maybe come up with those things before you get out of bed and just say, hey, these 3 things, if I do this, this, and this, then it was a great day. And then you get out of bed. Next thing you could do, make your bed. And that's so simple and it's so no-brainer. But I believe...
Are you the initial make your bed guy?
Yeah, I've been talking about it for like 20 years.
Jordan Peterson is also, you know Jordan Peterson, right?
Yeah.
He has also popularized make your bed, but he might be taking your material.
I don't know that.
I might need to sit down with you.
No, I wouldn't say he is. I mean, it's obviously many people make their bed, so I don't want to.
I thought you started it.
No, you know.
I thought people weren't making their beds before
until I
20 years
started
ago.
talking about it. No, I
That was the fun part about going to the hotel. Bed is made.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, who doesn't love a well-made bed, right?
Yeah.
But your brain loves a clean environment. And my things is all about your brain. So you do it because your brain loves a clean environment, and I believe excellence is a habit. That if you could take 2 minutes, do it well, you could potentially take that habit into other areas of your life.
I have never made my bed in my whole life.
What?
I've never made it. Sometimes if a girl was coming over, I would just like do this with the blanket and then I'd set it. I do not make the bed. It's so weird.
Yeah. What if you did? Like one time. Like what if tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like, you know, after you guys get up and you just started making the bed, would that freak her out?
Guys, if I become a billionaire because I started making my
yeah, I'm not making that claim either.
No, she actually makes the bed.
Yeah.
And that's something that like a habit that she's built. And don't get me wrong, it looks great. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I'm not saying I know whether or not Elon Musk and everybody makes their bed and everything else like that, nor am I going to make that claim. But I would just say test it out. I mean, every once in a while, like throw a curveball and start making the bed and just like, you know.
Is there something about like having a success in the beginning of the day?
Yeah, I think there's a science of momentum, right?
Yeah.
And success breeds success.
Yeah.
And if you get good at things that really don't matter, then you could take that into the things that do. You know, even little things like right after that, drinking water, simple thing. But right the night before, I'll put a glass of water there, like in my bed, like the nightstand.
Yeah. And
I'll drink it because you could lose up to a pound of weight just through respiration and perspiration. You know, just losing water and staying hydrated. Your brain is 75% water.
Yeah.
It's so a no-brainer. It could boost your reaction speed, your thinking speed, 15 to 30%. Just staying hydrated, man. Like, and you have a lot of water, you know, at the table here, but just drink some water. When I do it, I just down a couple of probiotics because that's good for your second brain, which is your gut.
Yeah.
You know, and then I do 3-minute exercise. And there's a study done at Appalachian State University. I'm gonna get a little geeky here, but they said for weight management and better sleep, when's the best time to exercise? Morning, afternoon, or evening? And they tested groups at 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and 7 p.m. And they found it was 7 a.m. It doesn't have to be your full workout, but if you just did 3 minutes of, you know, what's good for your heart's gonna be good for your head, get some blood flow and oxygen there.
Push-ups, sit-ups, something like that.
Yeah, burpees, jumping jacks, whatever for 3 minutes. Then those individuals got upwards of 75% deeper sleep. Just doing that for a few minutes first thing in the morning, you know, and so it jumpstarts your metabolism, you get some oxygen in your brain.
They slept deeper the next night, even though they were working out
that
quick
night
in the morning.
doing 7, yeah. And the most important thing you do for your sleep actually is get sunlight. And it's tough sometimes during the seasons, but if you could expose yourself to a few minutes of, it resets your circadian rhythm. So if you have sleep issues, getting into
What is that?
sun.
I've heard that before. Circadian rhythm. What is that?
Yeah, it's a 24-hour biological clock that we have. And so that's why it's so important to have consistency, but it's hard. You know, this, you know, with the whole pandemic and everything, people are stressed.
Is that why jet lag is difficult?
Yeah,
Does
very
it
much
upset
so.
your
You know,
circadian?
and that really, you know, when I talk about my sleep issues, going to different continents, you know, and touring and doing those things, you know, sleeping in foreign environments, like, you know, it's really bad when you're a memory expert, you wake up, you don't remember what city that you're in, you know what I mean? You're in some kind of stale hotel room and you have a, you know, gig that night and everything. And it's, you know, it's tough, but it could really mess up those rhythms. And then you're on different time clocks.
So your brain has its own clock.
Yeah.
And it knows what time it likes to go to bed and knows what time it likes to wake up.
Yeah.
And there's all these like cues in the environment to let us know when it's time, even though these outside sources like our phones and like our air conditioning, our heat in our home are kind of manipulating that circadian rhythm a bit.
Of what was natural and organic before.
Right. So if we're like, you're saying we're out there like camping, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be things that wake us up. A fucking wolf is going to howl. Like that has to be kind of baked into our sleep. You're not supposed to sleep 8 hours straight through. You'd die.
Yeah, I mean, certain things that could wake you up, and so sound makes a difference also as well. So you have light, you have temperature.
I guess what I'm saying is like
sound.
we should be able to like wake up a little bit and go back to sleep. But that should be baked into our DNA.
Yeah, falling back to sleep is different. Like a lot of people could go. Some people have trouble falling asleep. How's that for you?
I think I'm pretty good there.
Yeah. So the latency it happens within a handful.
Unless I have to wake up early.
Yeah.
And then there's that anxiety of like. Now it's only 5 hours of sleep. Now it's only 4 hours
so
of sleep.
So the rumination of that could create, and that stress puts you in the sympathetic mode and takes you out of that parasympathetic. Parasympathetic, rest and digest. That's what happens.
What do you got for that? What do we do then?
Yeah. So have you ever wake up?
Flight we're worried about. Yeah.
Do you wake? So if you wake up in the middle of the night, right, to go to the bathroom or whatever, can you fall back to sleep?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's great because a lot of people, their challenge is they can't fall asleep, insomnia, or they wake up and they can't fall back to sleep in the middle of the night or stay asleep, and then that's different. One of the simple things people could do for falling to sleep, whether it's in the middle of the night or not, is just doing a simple relaxation exercise of scanning your body and just going from, your toes to the top of your head and just say, it's like, something simple like thank you toes and go to your feet, your ankles, something like that. But most people won't make it all the way through. They'll just fall asleep because it's such a boring process. You know what I mean? But it gets them in their body as opposed to in their mind. Kind of like counting, sheep or whatever.
That's what I would do. I'd try to like just count breaths. It like kind of pseudo meditation type thing. But for whatever reason, I'd stop thinking about whatever I was worried about, and I'd kind of focus on the breaths, and it would work. I guess. Yeah, I guess a little bit. Okay, so that is your sleep routine. So
then I get up and I do the exercise, and then simple things that you mentioned, even in passing, simple things to challenge your brain, like brushing your teeth. So that I probably originated over 20 years ago. Brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, and I'm a big proponent because when you use a different part of your body, it actually stimulates a different part of your brain. And we know that if somebody has a stroke or a head trauma on one part of their side of their brain, if there's paralysis, it'll happen on the other side. That one side of your brain controls the opposite side of your body.
Gotcha.
But recent research has shown that when you use the other side of your body, it actually stimulates that part of your brain. It's not one way. It's actually back and forth. There's a study done at Oxford University that says jugglers learning to juggle actually makes your brain bigger. You create more white matter. I don't know if you could juggle, but if you could watch...
I can do 3.
Yeah, that's amazing. So just doing that actually creates more white matter. And so using your body, as your body moves, your brain grooves. And so challenge eating with the opposite hand or brushing your teeth with the opposite. Not only does it stimulate a different part of your brain, but also it forces you to be present. In the beginning, you're not going to be good at it. And so it forces you to be right here. And as opposed to like your mind going everywhere and being distracted and flexing your distraction muscles. And later you can't pay attention on a Zoom call.
There's for exercise, I box, right? And one of the things I enjoy the most about it is doing the pad work. I can't get lost in my thinking. It requires so much of that like cognitive energy for me to keep up with these different combinations that my coach is saying, and it's just really great for that reason.
Yeah, sparring is...
But sparring's next level, right? Sparring is like you're in survival mode, and that's so much fun, but there's also like a heavy cost for how fun it is. But every second you're like, am I planning on something? Am I defending something? But those types of exercise, maybe that's why we're drawn to it.
Yeah, where you can put your mind into your muscle, like great things like that are good for your brain. Those kind of exercises, pad work, ballroom dancing, great for the brain.
I grew up in a ballroom dance studio.
That's why you're so sharp, right?
That's right.
Like table tennis, like all these activities actually stimulate not only your muscles but also your mind. So it's good to challenge. And this is all about mental fitness, right?
Yeah.
Why
don't we think about our brains like any other muscle in our body? That's something we can improve. It's almost like we have this kind of like passive attitude towards our brain. This is the brain I was dealt with. This is my IQ. There's nothing I can do about it. This is how my memory is. And we just kind of like sit back as some passenger. None of my friends have ever said, you know what? I need to build up that part of my brain.
Yeah.
Ever once. We can build up every other part of our body. I'd like to get a 6-pack. I'm going to diet. I'm going to do abs and do all these things. my memory sucks or my vocabulary is really small. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Why do we have that attitude?
I think there are a lot of this conversation really is about, it's about transcending. It's about ending the trance. I think there's this mass hypnosis. Maybe it's propagated through media or marketing that somehow we're not enough, that somehow like our potential is fixed, like our shoe size. But we've discovered more about the human brain in the past 10 years than the previous 1,000 years combined.
This makes me really happy because now we can make fun of dumb people because they're just lazy.
I think intelligence is not fixed, and that if people use discipline and determination, then anything can get better.
Dumb jokes are back.
There you go.
Think about it, right? If it's a choice, if you're choosing to be dumb because you're not doing the things that you obviously can to improve.
Yeah, I mean, especially the way we have unfettered access to podcasts and YouTube. Like, ignorance is a choice for sure today.
You said something in the talk yesterday that was really great. It was like, what is the most efficient way to gain information? It's like, somebody put their whole life in a book.
Yeah, like decades of experience.
You can get that in 3 days.
4 days, yeah.
4 days, however long it takes you to read a book. Like right now, this conversation, you've put your whole life into.
I literally spent a fortune of time and money and everything so people don't have to do that themselves.
You lucky fucks.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting, we get this up for like,
Isn't that crazy?
That's why I love, like, if I gave you $1, you gave me $1, same, nothing changes.
Yeah.
But if I share a new idea that's worked for me and you share an idea, all of a sudden we have 2 brand new ideas and, we could create change, right? That knowledge is not only power, it's like, and if knowledge is power, learning is our superpower.
Yes.
So I think that the common trait behind all successful individuals, athletes, performers, business individuals, whatever, is they just, they study, right? They are addicted to that growth.
I want to get into a podcast I was listening of yours where you were talking about like a championship mindset. You were one of your pods. And one of the great things I love about your podcast is there can be like 11, 12 minutes. They're so digestible. I almost hope that when you brand them, you say that because when people hear the word podcast, they go, oh, this is going to be an hour. This is going to be 2 hours. This is going to be 3 hours. Joe Rogan's podcast, sometimes we did 3-hour episodes,
Wow.
But 11 minutes is so digestible.
Yeah, for Spotify, it was one of they binge listened, so it's very popular because
each one is a life hack. Each one is this
how
way
to remember
you can,
names, how to learn languages, what are the best brain foods, how do you hack your sleep and, do all these things, how do you read faster.
But not to interrupt, but there was a thing you said yesterday, before we get into the champion mindset thing, you said that you have to think about your brain as a computer.
Yeah.
And then your thoughts are the programs of that computer.
Yeah.
And the computer will execute those thoughts. So choose your fucking thoughts very wisely.
You have a great
Can you expand on that? I mean, there were those certain things that like really touched me in there, man, because there's all these people, if you have negative thoughts and your brain is just a computer, it's going to go, we're going negative today, baby.
Yeah. A negative mind will never yield a positive life. It just can't. It's not possible. People come to me all the time, even last night, and they say, hey, Jim, I got in secret, like, I'm too old. I'm not smart enough. I have had this, I have a horrible memory. And I say, stop. If you fight for your limitation, you get to keep them. So many of us unconsciously are always fighting for what we can't do.
Yeah.
And we just because our brain really is like a supercomputer and our thoughts are the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at remembering people's names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your computer not to. And so I just would remind everybody that thoughts are things, that there's a biology to a belief, that literally when you have a new thought, you're rewiring your brain for something. And we're always rehearsing either success or something else. And just whatever you're doing repeatedly, you're getting better at, and monitor because your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. And, like if you wouldn't say it to like someone you love, then why would you say it, to yourself? Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm sure there is a fine balance with like recognizing the things that you want to change and improve upon.
Yeah.
And also not limiting your ability to improve upon those things. So it's not like walking around lying to yourself all day. That's not productive.
And you don't even have to fake it to make it. I'm just thinking instead of maybe faking it to make it, maybe you face it until you make it, right? That with challenge and you challenge yourself, then you'll change.
Was that off the cuff? Because that was really good.
Yeah.
That was really good. Add it to the show. Add it to the show.
Yeah. Okay. But like, just like you challenge your body like champions do, like if you had to, if you want to grow your bicep, you do your 10 reps. The one you least want to do is number 10, but the one that gives you the most growth is number 11, right? You know what I mean? We challenge ourselves at the time.
I think that if we had exercises that yield positive results with our brain, we would be more apt to make those changes with our brain, right? We would believe that we could. You know, like the number exercise you did yesterday was great. Like you remembered like 30 fucking numbers in a row. I don't know how the hell you did it. Yeah. And then you did them backwards as well, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember going like, thinking that moment, I was like, man, if I was 8 years old and I did that in school, I would really think I could memorize anything.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such a shame that like at 37, I got to go, oh, there's little techniques that I can learn to remember things a little better. I don't just have to like stare at it and repeat it 3 times or, you know, write it down on a piece of paper 6 times, whatever like goofy techniques I had built. There are these, and maybe you can expand on that a lot, but like, I don't know, it's really empowering knowing you can change this thing when like before that, I thought, I don't really limit myself, man. I really don't limit myself, but I would say that the thing that was most limited for me would be my mind.
Yeah.
I never limit in terms of what I can achieve. I just go, well, I'll figure a way around it.
That's amazing.
But around maybe a limit that I might have here, okay, well, I can't learn another language. I'm too old. I'll figure a way around it. Yeah. I'll hire a Frenchman. You know what I mean? But now I'm just like, I'll learn French. Fuck it.
Yeah, that everything is figure outable, right? You eventually, if you're committed to doing that, that's a powerful core belief, right?
Yeah.
That if everybody had that they could figure out a way.
Yeah.
If they're dedicated to it.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, your memory is the same thing. That a memory can be improved, but going to somebody and saying, you know, focus or concentrate or remember is like going to somebody and saying, like, play the ukulele, who's never taken a class on that. They've never had any training in it. And I'm just saying some basic skills of learning how to remember names or things that you want to remember or numbers that's useful. Whatever your outcome is, because not everybody wants to remember numbers, right? But maybe they want to remember poetry, or they want to be in a Broadway show, or they want to remember, you know, a comedy set. You know, whatever is important to them.
Yeah,
they could apply those same principles.
Yeah, it was great. You God, what was the acronym that you had for it? There was 2. You did. There was MOM and Be Suave.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm remembering them. Okay. So which one do you think was more appropriate for just memorizing? What do you think the most difficult thing is for the average person?
Most people complain about names and faces because it's something that they
okay, let's do names. How do we lock in names?
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, knowing how important it is really important. You mentioned MOM, and so MOM, another acronym, and we'll get back to FAST also. Keep you like
we're closing on FAST.
Exactly. But the M, so let's say anyone watching or listening to this, if they have trouble remembering names, which is 95% of the population, right? But let's say that there was a suitcase of like $1 million cash for anybody who remembers the name of the next stranger who's joining us. Who's going to remember that name? Everybody, right? Yeah. And so the M in MOM, the first M is motivation, right? And so I would say we're all great learners when we're motivated to learn, right? If we're motivated and there's some kind of reward that comes from it. But I would just say that maybe connecting with the reason why studying something, but that's why we forgot a lot of things in school. Like, what are we using the periodic table and the quadratic equation? What are we using that for? So we probably don't remember it, right? But if you ask yourself, simple technique, a brain hack when you're meeting somebody, ask yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? Maybe it's to show the person some respect. Maybe it's to make a new friend. Maybe it's to get a referral. Maybe it's to practice these things I learned on this podcast. You know, because if you can't come up with a reason, you won't get the result. And so it's so important when you read and study, if you're in school, if you're preparing for something for work, to tap into the purpose, because without that motivation, you're probably not going to remember. The O in MOM was very simple. We did this kind of fun exercise where you shake out your hand, make a fist. You know, I told people to put it to their chin, and everyone put it to their cheek because I did it to my cheek. Yeah. But, you know, the O stands for observation. And a lot of times people blame their retention, and it's not your retention, it's your attention. You know, because a lot of people, they're not really listening. What are they doing? They're waiting for their turn to speak. They're thinking about how they're going to respond. You know, and if they're talking to themselves and listening, they're not going to listen to the other person. So they're not forgetting their name. They're just not hearing the name. So even if you take a word like listen, you write it down, and you do this little mental, you know, gymnastics in your mind and switch the letters around, it spells another word perfectly. The word listen, so when you scramble the letters, spells the word silent. And people could be so much better at remembering things if they were just quiet and silent.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they won't because they're that monkey mind.
Yeah. Sometimes they're just anxious. They maybe want to impress somebody and they're not listening to what they're saying. And sometimes the most impressive thing to somebody is just paying attention to them.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting to me because so many people are trying to impress by being interesting.
Yeah.
But
look how cool I am.
Exactly.
Hey, you're really cool. And that person goes, I like being around people who think I'm cool.
Exactly. And maybe it's not about being interesting, it's about being interested.
Yeah.
To somebody, right? Because everybody wants to feel like they're heard and seen and ask questions because it's everyone's favorite topic.
Yeah.
And then finally, motivation, observation, the last M are the methods that we talk about.
Yeah.
Like the B-swab and some of the other techniques about saying the name, repeating it, visualizing the person's name. And doing stuff.
What was that like? Putting their name. What was the example?
Yeah. If
Mary and then.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I would imagine a lot of people are joining us. They're better with faces than they are with names.
Yeah.
Right, you look at somebody and say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name.
Yeah.
You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never go to someone, I remember your name. I remember your name, but I forgot your face, right?
Dave, you look different.
Right, exactly. And so the reason why is there's a proverb that goes, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. What I hear, I forget. Heard the name, forgot it.
Yep.
What I see, the face,
I'm going to recall
it.
Yeah.
And what I do, going back to practice, practice makes progress, right? Practice doesn't even make perfect, makes progress.
Yeah.
Then you really understand. So I would say that when you visualize, since you tend to remember what you see, try seeing what you want to remember. So a person's name is Mike. Imagine you meet a Mike and they just jump on the table and start singing karaoke on a microphone. A split second. And it makes you laugh. You're probably going to remember it because it touches you emotionally.
His name is AlexxMedia.
Yeah.
That's an invented name. How are you going to remember it?
Yeah, so I would say that take the name and transform it into a picture. So if I say the word Alex, what do you think of? The first thing that comes to your mind.
Right now, weird. Alex Trebek.
There you go. That's amazing. And so if you can imagine Alex, right, and you could see the Jeopardy board and everything else like that, then that's a way of associating things together. You meet someone named Emma, right, and you think of, I have a relative that's like that, or Emma, like a famous Emma, or something that sounds like it. So if a person's, name is, I mentioned Andrew, for something that sounds like, if you're playing Pictionary, and you draw those ears like sounds like, when you have to think in pictures. And, and somebody thinks about an android, they're not going to call you android, but have you ever forgot someone's name and you start going through the alphabet? Does it start with an A? Does it start with a B? And you get really nervous when you get to like W because there's not a lot of letters like after that. But sometimes E and you think of Eric, right? Or you think of D and you think of Dove or something like that. It just reminds you. So if you come up with something that sounds like Mary, the person's getting married all of a sudden. It's Carol singing Christmas carols. For me, David, whenever I meet someone named David, I think of a slingshot right to their nose because David and Goliath, right? And it's so silly, but then it takes a split second and I can't forget it because when I leave that party or whatever later on, I was like, what did I do? What happened there? Oh, I shot him in the nose with a slingshot. What's
so you
his name?
create like
David.
A cartoon almost in your head of an activity that's associated with the name.
It's a fun, you know what it does? It overcomes what I call the 6-second syndrome. When somebody tells you their name or you read, you have 6 seconds to do something with it. Otherwise, it's gone in the ether. Right? You're never going to get it back. So when it does, it gets you to focus on the person and it gets you to focus on the name. So even when it doesn't work, it still tends to work because it gets you to concentrate and pay attention.
Yeah.
So if a person's name is Mark, imagine you putting like a little check mark on their forehead. Like you would never forget that. And then that's what I remember. And once you know the person's name is Mark or Alex or anything else like that, then the picture disappears. I don't think of Jeopardy anymore, because it was a means to an end.
Yeah.
Right. And how do kids remember names? Did you have your name made fun of growing up or?
Andrew, not really. Andrew Pandrew, I don't know. Nothing really.
That's what they'll do. They'll they had their songs about it and, with a name like Kwik, I got, like Nestle Kwik or all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But that's how kids remember things. So using your imagination is definitely a plus.
You also said, I think it was with the names you were saying that you can, what was it? Put it in a scenario?
Yeah. Like if you, I think when you meet people with unusual names.
Oh, yeah. Asking them what the etymology is, but just like, why are you named that? Like if you said my name's AlexxMedia, it'd be like, why are you named AlexxMedia?
Who are you named? Exactly. And everyone, I think a lot of people are flattered when you hear a name that you haven't heard before.
But how did you word it? Because the way I say it is antagonistic.
Okay.
Why are you named that?
Yeah. So
Why don't
when
you have
somebody
a normal
tells you
name?
their name, like their name could be, I met a Rudiger the other day, right?
Yeah.
I was like, what's the origin? How do you spell it? Where's it from? Just
Right.
because curiosity, that interest, being interested in somebody.
Yeah.
Because remember, like we've all heard this, but like a name is the sweetest sound to a person's ears. Like think about like one of the first words you learn how to write. And, maybe growing up praising you for just doing it like sloppy and everything else, and so a name is so important. And so taking that name, asking about how you spell it or who you're named after or something like that takes interest. Plus it just helps you to ingrain it also as well.
And it's more than just names that you're doing that with, right?
Yeah. Having a curiosity over anything is going to help you. Motivation and curiosity is going to.
Somebody told me a story about Bill Clinton, not an X-rated one. And they said he was like, they were at a party with Bill Clinton, and they were at that party, and there was also some family friends that were at that party. And all of them left the party thinking that Bill Clinton found them to be the most interesting human being that has ever existed. Like they all left the party with the exact same feeling, like that guy thought I was the best ever. He's got great taste. Yeah. And then when they reconvened afterward, they shared the story, and they're like, oh, fuck, this is just this guy's skill. Yeah. He has this amazing ability. And maybe it's like what you're saying. Maybe he wasn't entertaining. Maybe he was paying attention. Maybe he was interested.
Yeah. I met him briefly years ago. And like 2 years later, I went to a charity event. And it was 2,000 people in this gala for, this good cause. And I sit at my table I was assigned to. I was the first one there. And when I sat down shortly afterwards, Forrest Whitaker sits right next to me, right? And then Richard Branson sits next to him. And I'm like, whoa, I think I got like sitting at the wrong. And then Ashton Kutcher sits down. Yeah. His twin brother sits down. Okay. And Bill Clinton sits right next to me.
Get out of
And
it.
I was just like, wow. And I swear to you, he remembered my name.
Really?
Right? And we only talked for like a few minutes before.
Unbelievable.
And I was like, okay, he was fed that. Like he knew who was sitting at his table clearly. And then I swear to you, he picks up the conversation we had 2 years earlier.
No.
Yeah. And I was like, I need to know how you do this. I'm the memory guy. And he starts talking to me about his grandfather in Arkansas, how in the living room he would tell stories to all the kids, but something different. He would quiz each of them individually to see if they were paying attention. And while he was explaining this to me, I was like, I got this eerie feeling because I felt like I was the only one in that room of 2,000 people. Have you ever met somebody that they're just so fixated and you feel like you're the only one that exists? And I realized that his incredible memory, and regardless of politics, people would say that he has got this charisma, great connector, great communicator. Yeah. But he's got this powerful presence. And I think his incredible memory and his powerful presence with people comes from being powerfully present with people. That his incredible memory and his powerful presence comes from being powerfully present, right? And, when he's looking at you, he's like asking, thoughtful questions. Clearly he's listening with the idea that he wants to learn. And you feel like you're the only one exists. And there's many more important people in that room than me. Certainly at that table than I was, but I felt like I was the only one. And so I thought I was the only one that was special. That
hate to break it to you.
But yeah, but again.
That's great that you asked him though. And he was forthcoming with the information.
Very, very much so.
And so his father would tell a story and then, or his grandfather would tell a story. And then like during the story, ask them?
Would just quiz them to see if they were paying attention to what was going on. And I think that's an incredible art. I mentioned Larry King and we did each other's show and he has this curiosity. He always thinks he's like the dumbest person in the room.
I love it.
And he has no ego about it. And he's just like very real. And when he asks a question, he sincerely, you can feel he sincerely wants to know the answer. Yeah. And they say that, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room or whatever. Yeah. But he has this genuine, caring sincerity, and so it just comes so authentic.
I wonder if an excellent memory increases self-confidence.
Yeah.
Because think about it, like if every interaction you're having with a human being, you can recall that last interaction, you'd be pretty confident in that conversation. You know something about that person. You can always reference a past story, picking up where you left off. You're going to baffle them. I mean, when Clinton started that story again, you were taken aback, right?
And I've seen some press thing, but that just like, because he meets a lot of people. Yeah.
He does it for a living.
Yeah,
literally
pretty much.
just meets people.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, whoa.
Yeah, when you meet,
I think he's writing down these events. You think?
I don't know about him, but I just know that this is a trainable skill. It's available for all of us. Because how are you going to, again, show somebody you're going to care for their business, their future, if you don't care enough just to remember them? When you can remember their fiance's name, right? Or you can remember important things about them.
Yeah.
They feel like you care, right? And I think that's such an important skill now, and like not just business etiquette and networking. I think it's an important skill in life. And we're all forgetful, right? It happens to the best of us, and yet we could be better. And it's worth it, because even when it comes to names and faces, unfortunately, it's a standout skill. Because if you could walk into a room and meet 20 strangers and leave saying goodbye to every single one of them by name, who are they all going to remember, right? They're going to remember you. People remember people who remember them. Right, and that's why it's so important, right? We learn these laws. It's what you know, and that's why we teach accelerated learning, so you can know a lot of information, so you can make good decisions other people can't make because you know stuff, right? It's also who you know, right? And so you have to remember those people, but it's also who knows you, right? And people tend to remember people who remember them, and so that's why I think it's very important. It's and going back to confidence. I was the most not confident person growing up, because when you are labeled broken and you don't know anything and you're not picked for heart and you're not cool, you just like I spent time with all the geeks and the nerds, because I read comic books, played video games, and Dungeons and Dragons, but I didn't have their grades, right? At all. I remember when I was in elementary school.
That's the worst. A nerd, but that's dumb.
I know that was me. So that was the poster boy for that. But I remember I was with all these smart kids, and the teacher came in the classroom. I were playing these.
What are you doing?
Games. Exactly. And the teacher was like, "Okay, class, we created this group in the school called MASP, and it stands for More Able Student Program." Yeah. And I was the only one that wasn't part of it in that group, and so I grabbed somebody else that would fit that billing and not that billing, and we created a group called LASP. Less able student program, right? Because I just didn't fit in, because I just felt like I couldn't do it. So I was very not confident. My superpower was shrinking down, because I didn't want to be called on in class. I'd sit all the way in the back, sit behind the tall kid, being invisible. And I would do a book report, but if a teacher asked me to present it, I would lie and say I didn't do it, because I was so not confident, right? Because you don't want, when you're broken, you don't want the spotlight. You don't want to be heard. And after everyone would leave, I would walk out, take it out of my book bag, the book report, and throw it out. It was like a symbol I was throwing out my potential. Yeah. And so that was me. But going back to confidence, I think a lot of my confidence came from being competent, right? When you have a good memory and you could remember things confidently, then it's like, well, that's a lot of work to visualize. No, it's a lot of work to forget things all the time, to look for those keys, to be able to find your phone, to be able to forget people's names, right? And embarrass yourself and lose those deals and those relationships. And so, I think in psychology, it's actually called confidence competence loop, that the more confident you are, the more competent you are at something, right, the more confident you are. And because you're more confident, you're going to do that activity more, and then you're going to get more confident and create momentum, right? Oh, that's so great. Confident competence loop, and so that when you're confident, it leads to greater competence. When your competence leads to greater confidence.
So most people right now are going, okay, well, where the fuck did you get the confidence to switch it? Yeah, once you got the confidence, run with it. Great, let's go to the top. How do you start the loop? Yeah. And especially when you're at your lowest.
Yeah, I was at my lowest for a good decade and a half every single day. Okay. With this label, I would struggle, have anxiety and all these kind of issues. And I was introverted just personally, but because of my issues, I became very shy. And shy is different introvert, right? Introvert is just, you like being by yourself, you replenish by yourself. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
No, but it's interesting that you make that distinction, because there are people that they just don't need the validation of strangers constantly. Yeah. So we look at them, we're like, oh, you're shy. And they're like, no, I'm full. Yeah. I don't have the void you have, so I don't need you to tell me I'm great all the time. I'll just speak when I want to speak. Where there's performers, probably like me and many other comics and people in other fields as well, where we're like, I don't feel whole. Yeah. Am I funny? Am I whole? Am I funny? Am I whole? We're good? Okay, now I'm whole. I got a couple breaths of oxygen, as my buddy Neil Brennan puts it, and then I can be good for now. So that's interesting to make that distinction. That's right. Shy is different than introverted.
Yeah.
Shy is almost like a self-imposed introversion. You don't want to be.
Yeah.
You want to be friendly. You want to have these other people in your life that like you spend time with. You want to speak out loud. You just don't have the fucking confidence to do it. Oof. Crippling.
Yeah. That. I mean, do you think performers, a lot of them come from feeling not enough, and that's what drove them to?
It must.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must. I mean, like, I don't think it's. I think on some level that's where like that's maybe the catalyst.
Yeah.
You know, like that maybe is the spark, like not getting enough attention in some way. There's also just a love for it. I don't think every comic has to have this like tragic story, you know, oh, this person was touched as a kid or his parents hated him or these type of things. Like I think there are people that just truly enjoy entertaining, you know, and, but it is odd to stand in front of people and just go, aren't I good? You know, but my relationship with it has always been kind of, before I had a crowd that like we all knew what we were getting in on when we came to the show, before I had that experience, I was almost a little bit resentful of the audience who would be like, all right, make me laugh. And I'd be like, who the fuck are you? Like, this is, you signed up for this too.
Right.
We both, you wanted to be made laugh and I wanted to make you laugh. You don't got to cross the arms. You know what I mean? Prove to me you're good at being an audience too. So it was cool to be at this stage. I don't want to distract too much. So shy and introverted.
Yeah, so I think sometimes it's a choice. I was very depleted. I didn't have that. You know, there's a great book called Quiet, and it's The Power of Introverts by Susan Cain, and she has this idea that introverts wake up and they have 5 gold coins, and every single time they engage with somebody takes their coin. And they feel depleted. So then they have to be by themselves to replenish. Extroverts wake up and they have no gold coins. And every single time they engage with somebody, they get energy and energy and energy. And so I could feel that. And on top of it, being damaged, I felt like I was shy. I wanted to be able to, even though I was shrinking and being invisible, I didn't want to be seen. I did want to be seen, right? We all want to be heard. We want to be recognized. And so it wasn't, but I've always had that drive because I had purpose, because I wanted to, you know, I don't know, maybe just deep down I felt like there was something there and I just couldn't figure it out.
I guess what I'm asking is like, the person that's listening right now and they go, wow, I'd like to make that change in my life. What was the first step? What is the easiest thing to flip in the positive direction?
So my inspiration was my desperation, right? I was so desperate. And my advice for somebody in that same situation is to take a small, simple step, right? I believe that you don't have to do little things add up to big things, right? Little by little.
Don't lose 400 pounds.
Exactly. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. This consistency compounds. And I would say that for greater confidence, first of all, I think confidence is not something we have, because we always say, oh, I want to have confidence. But I think that's also a way of brainwashing ourselves, because I don't think we have these things. I think we do. There's certain things you could do that will give you confidence. Right now, if everyone did this exercise and said, on a scale of 0 to 10, you know, how confident do you feel about something, right? And or just about life in general. And people could say it's a 5, then you could do a thought experiment game. You could gamify it. You're like, okay, well, what do I need to do to feel a 6? Or a 7? Right? Maybe I need to play some you know, good music. Maybe I need to just get up and, you know, move around or whatever it happens to be. And I would say do something small, get yourself out of your comfort zone. There's this quote, what was this? Wasn't there a Matt Damon movie about buying a zoo? Right, whatever. But there's a quote saying that, you know, 20 seconds of like, you know, insane confidence or courage could just change your life. And I would say that, here's one. While the beauty is in the butterfly, the growth happens in the cocoon. Right, it's the struggle to come out that builds your strength to be able to soar.
You said something last night about like it was inside versus outside.
Like I was using the metaphor of an egg that. If an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if an egg is broken by an inside force, life begins. So great things begin on the inside.
So what is that first thing? Like, even what is the smallest little thing that you would recommend? First step.
So I would
make your fucking bed.
I would say that fear, right? Because usually what makes us not confident is uncertainty, right? It's the unknown, and it's not comfortable. And while the comfort zone is a nice place to visit, nothing grows there. right? And you know this, right? To get on stage, to be able to, you are where you are because you put in the work and the sacrifice and those late nights and those gigs that, you know, and those that you maybe didn't want to, you know, do. And, you know, and so that's what success is, you know, most people see the tip of the iceberg and they see this lifestyle, and yet below the iceberg is that discipline and all the things that led to it, the mess and everything. So I would say, ask yourself this question: what is the tiniest action I could take that will give me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? So make it so minuscule. So maybe if people aren't confident about their body and they don't work out, maybe working out an hour a day is way too big. So a small, simple step: put on your running shoes. You know, maybe reading, we said leaders are readers, and try to read a book a week, but, you know, breaking it down, it's about 45 minutes for the average reader a day, which is a lot. But if you get, that's why we tripled people's reading speed so they can do it in 15 minutes a day. But maybe 45 minutes is too big. Maybe a small, simple step: opening up the book, reading one line in the book. Some people don't floss their teeth, right? Get yourself to floss one tooth, because you're not going to stop at one tooth, and you develop some kind of momentum, right? And so that's really the key.
Start with one tooth is the best.
But do something, and metaphorically, for whatever you feel fearful of,
right?
You know, take that small, simple step, break it down where it's digestible.
Well, before, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're a very busy man, but we got to get through fast.
Yeah. So F is forget. Forget about what you know about it so you can learn something new. Because if you go to an event about sales and starting a business, you might think you know it, then you're not going to learn anything new. Right. Also, forget about distractions, because multitasking is a myth, right? It's actually task switching. So when you say you're multitasking, nobody is actually doing that. You're going from one task to another. And what it costs you is time. Yeah. Because it could take 5-10 minutes to regain your focus. Like you hop onto social media, like you just, that's like a wormhole, right? And you come back and you're like, oh my God, just 30 minutes just disappeared. Because you could scroll till you die. Right? That's never going to end, ever, right? So do one thing.
That was the worst, when Instagram used to tell you when there was nothing left.
Right.
You're just like, man, I suck today. I reached the end.
There's no more. So here's the thing. So I would say, forget about distractions, because you lose time. Yeah. You make mistakes when you're trying to multitask. So if you want to study something and learn it, and you're listening to a podcast, you're taking note. But if you're on Slack and social media and you're not going to do anything well. You're going to make more mistakes. And the third thing, you use up more energy. You burn more brain glucose. So if you suffer from mental fatigue, which a lot of people do, brain fog, sometimes it's because you're trying to multitask and you have too many tabs in your computer open. And even if they're minimized, they're still taking up energy, right? They're still taking up memory, right? So kind of close that tab. If something comes in your mind, something you have to do, write it down so you can release it, right? Because what you resist persists. If you try not to do something, you're just going to do it more, right? So forget about those things. The A in fast, you got to be active. Like, because learning, like life, is not a spectator sport. And so many people they sit back passively and say, okay, you know, teach me. But that's not how the brain learns. The brain doesn't learn through consumption. It learns through creation and creativity. And you can't learn by just being lectured to. And a teacher it's not the responsibility to push information in your head. And so as much as you get active. So for example, how can people be active? I mentioned the first thing, just taking some notes, right? And actually handwriting notes and digitally taking notes is different, right? And so I don't know, and people could mention this.
I recall handwritten way better.
Yeah.
Handwritten,
and you're not alone. And I'll tell you one of the reasons. Digital is great for storing information, sharing it, you know, but handwriting notes has been proven to help your comprehension and retention. One of the reasons why is most people could type pretty fast, and you could type almost everything that we're talking about right now, but you can't possibly handwrite. And so it forces
time with it.
It forces you to reflect on it, to filter it, what's most important and relevant here, right? So those are little things. Plus, it's very kinesthetic and personal when you're handwriting things.
You're also going shorthand, so you're just writing the important words. Yeah, it's super dense when you take notes handwritten.
Much better. You know, even a whole brain note-taking way is because the reason why you take notes is because there's a learning curve. There's also a forgetting curve. Do you know how much is lost? When you listen to a podcast, read a book, get a lecture at university, after hearing it once, after 2 days, how much do you think you forget on average?
I'm at I don't know, 25%, 30%.
80%. Isn't that wild? You listen to something.
We got to keep putting out the same apps every week. We're working 80%. Too hard.
So by taking notes, it helps that to reduce that. And a fun way of taking notes that will help your comprehension retention, take a piece of paper, put a line right down the page, On the left side, capture. On the right side, create. Now this is nuance. On the left side, you're going to take notes. On the right side, you're going to make notes.
These are the things that are being said. These are my
Exactly.
thoughts about it.
Exactly. Perfect.
That's great.
So that's a left and right brain away. So left brain is usually
great.
logic and linear. So you're going to capture how to remember names, right? What's the morning routine, right? And you're capturing it. On the right side, if your mind, your imagination is going to go somewhere, let it go instead of distracting you and mind wander. Let it go on the right side of the page.
Yeah.
How am I going to use this? How does this relate to what I know? What questions do I, just go on and you create. The future belongs to the creators, right? I love being around creatives because where jobs are going, they're being automated. They're going to machines, AI. But what's not is our ability to create and imagine. That's what is limitless.
You said something. I had a note about that specifically when you were talking about you can't. What was the exact word? I had it here. Something about you can't create, something.
Yeah, there's no like when we talk about my book title, I chose to call it Limitless because what's truly the sky is not the limit. Our minds are the limit. What's truly limitless is our creativity. There's no limit on our creativity. There's no limit on our imagination. There's no limit on human determination. And so I want to unlock those treasures in people's minds. And so, the future belongs to the creatives. So the A is being active. So one of the things you do is take notes. One of the things people do right now is being active. Take a screenshot of what you're watching or listening to right now, and tag Andrew, tag myself so we see it, and share one thing that you learned, right? That's a way of being active online, and I'll be active right back. I'll repost some of, the favorite takeaways, but those are the ahas. So it makes you own it a little bit more. So that's the A, is being active in your learning, because learning is not a spectator sport, but school taught you to just consume when you should consume and create, right?
It was cool that you told us to take notes during the performance because I would have felt guilty writing my phone. Because I would have thought that you're thinking if you saw me, he's texting, he's not paying attention. But I was furiously writing notes. I even had to tell Pablo, I was like, hey buddy, I'm writing notes. I'm not being But it was really good that you kind of empowered the audience to do that if they chose.
Yeah, even the things that we did, like getting up and turning and some of the exercise that we did, it was more active than just listening to a lecture, right? Okay. And I think that's really, one of the great things you offer is just entertainment is just, it's so much grander than education. But when you could take education and present it in an entertaining way, then you could really empower people, right?
100%.
And so, and that goes to the S in fast, where you have F is forget, A is active, S is state. And S state means emotional states, like the mood of your mind and your body. Because as we talked about last night, that information by itself is forgettable, but information when combined with emotion becomes unforgettable.
Locked.
Think about it. I imagine everyone who's listening, there's a song you could hear and take you back to when you're in high school, right? There's a fragrance or a food that could take you back to when you're a child.
Or traumatic event.
Right.
It's probably locked in your head.
Emotions. We all we all remember where we were at certain dates of emotional intensity. And so, but the challenge is the emotion most people learn in is boredom. You think about school, and if it's emotion times, times information, if the emotion is zero, then you wonder why you forgot the periodic table and all the things we learned in school. Yeah. So the state is, how can you increase your state when you're learning something to make it more entertaining in your mind? Even when I go on stage and I'm waiting, sometimes the speaker before me might be boring and I'll be watching and everyone's falling asleep, and I'll be actually really excited because I'll think, wow, how's this person putting everyone to sleep? That's so fascinating to me, right? I'll get really engaged because I want to be in control of my emotions. I don't want to be at the effect of the weather or anything else that's going on. So state is, if you want to learn something better, get in that playful, curious state, bring some excitement, sit the way you be sitting if you're really engaged and focused, and then your physiology affects your psychology, right?
Yeah.
And so control your state. All learning, like life, is state dependent. And finally, the T in fast, where F is forget, A is active, S is state. This is the review. T, teach. Learn. When you're learning something, teach it to somebody else.
Yeah,
because your intent matters. Yeah. They call it the explanation effect. Yeah. That if you learn something and you had to explain it to somebody else the next day or give a TED talk about it, would your focus be better? Would you concentrate better? Would you take better notes? Would you ask more questions? You would own it because you have to reflect on it and be able to share it with the world. And I would say when you teach something, you get to learn it twice. So if you want to accelerate your learning, be a faster learner, think about somebody that you care about that you wish was listening to this. Not only share this episode and everything, this video and everything else, but teach them something. Teach them one thing you got out of it, and you'll know it better.
Yeah, and it kind of exposes the gaps in your knowledge base about the subject as well, right? Like
completely.
You try to explain it, you're like, I don't exactly know what happened between 1920 and 1923. I should kind of do a little more research on that. Yeah, it's interesting. The teaching aspect is huge.
I love that. Even when you needed, like, if you wanted to repeat somebody's joke and stuff like, where your gaps are, in your understanding.
Even with your own, like, just material, like talking it out to a crowd, or like telling your friends you have an idea for a joke. I don't ever like do bits to people, but like I'll be like, here's this idea, let's talk it out.
Yeah,
there's something about that. It's
when
like,
you explain it, you just know it better. I always heard this. You hear this phrase that those who don't know or can't do, they teach. Right. And he was like, if you can't make it in business, then teach business in business school. But I never saw it as a negative. I always thought, well, if I can't do something, teach it, and I could do it better. You know what I mean? It's because interesting. Like the two biggest challenges I had growing up: learning and public speaking. And the universe has a sense of humor, because all I do is public speak on this thing called learning. But by doing it, I learn it so much better. Well, so can you.
That's great. Please tell everybody where they can see your stuff. I mean, I really enjoy, you call them podcasts. I enjoy these quick bites.
These bites, digestible.
Digestible brain hacks. I'm telling you, it's just so easy. You have this great playlist that's up on YouTube.
Thank you.
Please tell them everywhere.
If people go to Kwik Brain, you have to spell it right, Kwik.
Yes.
That's really my last name, Kwik Brain.
And we'll link to you down here.
Yeah, kwikbrain.com. You'll get these 3 training videos and links to all the podcasts. The podcast, as you mentioned, is 10, 15, no more than 20 minutes.
They're great.
You can binge list it, start from episode 1, go all the way through. You'll learn all these strategies in detail. Yeah. We have a book that came out, Limitless.
Limitless, yeah.
Upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, unlock your exceptional life. You can get it at limitlessbook.com. When you go there and get it, we give you a 10-day program on accelerated learning and speed reading, because I want you to, when the book arrives, to be able to read it and finish it.
That's great.
We donate all the proceeds to charity and on social media. I would challenge everybody, as I mentioned, to take a screenshot of this and share it so you could teach it to other people.
Yeah.
And tag us both in there and share your big takeaway. I'll actually repost some of my favorites, and I'll actually gift a few copies of the book out
sweet.
To people.
That'd be great.
To everyone, just as a thank you for just playing along. And all the links are in my Instagram profile.
And we'll make sure that we include that as well. Okay, I have a couple questions, and then you're out of here.
Yeah.
Right, this is our little lightning round.
Okay.
You're on the hot seat right now.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. So you said that there was a kid that grabbed your chair and that's why you fell.
Yeah.
Did you ever find out who that was?
Yeah, it was Julie. I know exactly who it is.
What's Julie doing now?
Yeah, I don't know, but we there was this fire engine outside, and we all got on our chairs to see it. We were in kindergarten, and she pulled the chair out, not maliciously, I think. She just wanted to be able to get on the chair and be able to see what was going on outside. But I took a head first into the radiator and created a whole ripple. But I'm thankful, because honestly,
it worked out.
There you go.
Okay, what were your goals today, and how many have you met so far? Those 3.
What are my goals today?
Remember you said...
Yeah.
Okay.
So personally, it was to jump in the ocean today, which I got. It's not huge.
I love this.
Being here in Miami.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't huge, but I just said, I was filming all day today from early morning till I got here.
Right.
And I just I'm going to do myself a good, favor by jumping into the ocean. I had a great green smoothie, which was also personal. And I got to spend time with my bride. And that was, special also as well.
Amazing.
And those are personal things. And then work thing was we filmed, all day today, which was big. I got to do a little writing during a break. And this is the final thing right here. It's be here with you. That's the highlight, man.
Okay. You talked about brushing your teeth with the opposite hand.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you do with the opposite hand as well?
I eat with the opposite hand.
Good. That is also good. All of you guys should have been thinking that same thing. Does my fiance have a broken brain?
Can I mention her name and stuff like that? No, she does not. She
okay,
doesn't.
Good.
She's brilliant and she's bright, and you are marrying up. I'll score some points there.
Let's go. I'm marrying up, baby. Okay. Now, you've worked with a lot of celebrities: Elon Musk, Will Smith, Jim Carrey. Out of all of them, who has the most broken brain?
Then it's no, they all really bright. Well, I don't coach a lot. I mean, I did programs at SpaceX and everything, and but I learned from all of them. You know, one of the takeaways from Jim Carrey is we were making some brain foods, as we talked about last night, in his kitchen during a break at his home, and I was like, why do you do what you do? You know, as a comedian, he's like, I act like a complete fool on camera because I want to give people at home permission to be themselves. And he's like, my religion is freeing people from the concerns of others because people are so wrapped up with the opinions and expectations of that people impose on them. And I thought that was a big takeaway. So I can't talk about who's broken, but I could tell you they're all amazing minds. That's
a good rationalization, Jim. I don't know if I believe it, but I'll let you rock with it. Okay, last one. Do you have any Bitcoin?
I have I dabble in it. Yes.
Let's go.
And
to the moon, Al.
Yeah, we're looking into an NFT and some other stuff there. You know, because I'm really fascinated
by the crypto world.
Yeah, I am, because we live in an exponential world. You know, autonomous cars, spaceships that are going to Mars. You know, I like to see things advance, and I'm curious.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. We're doing some dabbling ourselves.
Okay.
So we're dabbling to the moon, Jim.
Yes.
Thank you so much, guys. This is Jim Kwik. Please go check out all his stuff. And again, thank you so much for spending the time, taking the time. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Cheers.